Panic or patience? The injuries are mounting in Santa Clara. What does Jordan Addison's suspension say about a potential Demarcus Robinson suspension? And what Steph and I are looking for with the Denver Broncos and 49ers joint practices and first preseason game? All of that and more right after this. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network, the only podcast that has been full participants on every single day of training camp. Steph, how are you?
I'm good, except that one day that I needed the haircut, but that was an excused absence. No injuries there.
Steph Sanchez out for personal reasons. That's how we're going to label that one. And the only reason we're making fun of this is because there's a multitude of injuries out of 49ers training camp, and we're trying to navigate it. And everything from a knee to a hamstring to personal to vet day, we're going to get through all of that. But some breaking news that just came out right now. Keenan Allen, a person that has been whispered about with the 49ers, has reunited with the Chargers and signed for 1 year, $8 million. Certainly wouldn't have signed here with that amount of money. And I think the bigger point about it is the 49ers are not going to bring in anybody who has the cachet to demand targets and actually can ask for targets. They're going to continue to rotate in these Robbie Chosens and Andy Isabellas and Equinemius St. Browns and Marquez Callaways. That's the ilk of receivers that they're going to be bringing in to run routes. So, Steph, shocked that the 49ers didn't sign Keenan Allen?
I think you're right in that. I think the money aspect of it and what he would probably demand in targets, how he kind of would want to fit into the pecking order of whatever offense he's in, just probably didn't jive with what the 49ers have planned. Early in the season, sure, he'd probably get targets, but once BA's back, once Jauan Jennings is back, yes, they'd want to prioritize those guys over Keenan, I would imagine.
Yeah, a guy that's going to come in here isn't going to say, especially somebody at the end of their career, isn't going to say, I'm just here to kind of pitch in wherever. No, he's going to demand targets. He's going to want the football. He deserves to get the football. One of the most underrated route runners in our closest time, right? Like now, like always been somebody who's just been overlooked. It was never going to be anything in that fashion, right? The names that the 49ers would be looking at are these players that just would need to be there to help run routes and to help figure out what's going on with all the injuries with the wide receiver core. And that's really just it. Like I think a lot of people have gotten to the point where they're saying, well, why haven't you brought in Keenan Allen? What's going on with Jauan Jennings' calf? Keenan Allen is not somebody who's just going to say, hey, I'll be here for a few weeks. And then when somebody comes in, I'm out of here. No, he's going to want to be a part of the offense and continue to be a part of the offense. It's just not going to line up with what the 49ers need right now as they try to just, pardon my French, limp through these training camps and limp into these joint practices. But Steph, I wanted to talk about something else that's not exactly 49ers related, but does have to do with the 49ers. The NFL handed down their suspension for Jordan Addison, 3 games for a DUI arrest. And Jordan Addison has no record in the NFL, no arrest record at all. This is a first offense. So this has to kind of line up with what the upcoming suspension for Demarcus Robinson would look like. So 3 games for Jordan Addison. We have to at least suspect 3 games who play. Demarcus Robinson pled no contest to the DUI charge. Are we expecting 3 games or maybe a little bit less?
I think it seems like 3 games is the standard for the NFL. And, as you pointed out, that's even with not having any priors. So, yeah, I think 3 games is what we're looking at for Demarcus Robinson. The question still remains, when will the NFL take action on this, right? I would imagine it would happen fairly soon, right? Because what other cases do they have to look at? That
Rishi
one's very.
Rice?
Yeah, I know. It was like actually they do probably have a number of them, but that one being similar to the Demarcus Robinson one, maybe they kind of work on those around the same time. So I don't know. I almost hope you hope, right, that it's not in the first 3 weeks of the season because you do know that's going to be around the time where they will need him most when Brandon Ayuk is still out. We still don't know what's going on with Jauan Jennings, so yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But I mean, there's other guys stepping up during this time, so those guys will get a shot too.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Ricky Pearsall is the greatest wide receiver in the world. If you're just listening to anybody at camp, no, he's doing very well. But yeah, this definitely is going to come down a lot faster. I think the Rasheed Rice situation is far more complicated. You know, you have the street racing, the leaving the scene of an accident, the crash, the car crash itself. You know, this is a DUI charge, and it feels just like in line. And again, you don't look at the quality of the player to think that, you know, hey, they'll suspend them 3 and, you know, maybe like go lenient on somebody else. If it's 3 for him, it'll probably be 3 for Demarcus Robinson. If I was guessing, we're probably going to find out a little bit about this in a few days. And I definitely think it'll be the first 3 weeks that you're going to be without Demarcus Robinson, which really puts pressure on this 49ers receiver group, you know, depending on who you ask about Jauan Jennings. And I thought it was interesting because, and you know, we can pivot to the injuries now, and we might as well start with him. You know, depending on who you ask, and it's funny because Kyle Shanahan was asked, "Hey, is this a business thing? Is this a?" And he goes, "Well, you'd have to ask him, but when it's a calf, you want to kind of take that, you know, slowly." So, you know, we all have these conspiracy theories. He's going through the contract thing. All of a sudden, this calf thing pops back up, which, by the way, it definitely was a thing early on. It definitely was a thing. So this isn't something that's
Mhm.
brand new. It's something that he worked through during OTAs. But there is this like tinfoil hat theory, like, man, this is a negotiation tactic, and he might be trying to scare the 49ers. Steph, what's your sense since you're there at training camp and you know you've been talking to people?
So I definitely didn't think that it was just a negotiation tactic at this point, just because he had been there. Not only had he reported, but he participated in the first few practices. So I was like, okay, he's good with practicing. Then this comes up, and I do see him like rehabbing. So I'm like, okay, but I haven't seen him rehabbing since. And today was one of those unique days where we kind of see everyone that's injured like rehabbing for the most part. They were out there on the field pretty openly. Did not see Jauan Jennings out on the field. That's not to say that he's not in the building at all, but now I'm starting to get the growing sense that, okay, after maybe it was nagging him, he's like, yo, I'm gonna chill. There's no reason for me to make this worse, to re-aggravate it, because I already did. You know, I do feel like it was legit. But yeah, I think maybe now he's just milking it until it's worth it for him to come back.
I have no problem with this. I think him and his agent, they're doing what they think is best. You know, the agent's taking care of his client. It's business. Business is cutthroat. You can't tell me business is business when an organization shuts out a player, and you can't say, "Oh, well, it's messed up that a player is using his leverage in the same way," right? Like we can't have
Yeah.
it both ways. But Rob, if you could pull up that injury list because it is so long, and I really, really have a tough time remembering everything. So, we'll start with the obvious news of Kevin Givens likely to be missing weeks in the regular season with a pectoral issue, and that's something that was bothering him last season as well. Evan Anderson has a knee bruise. Kyle Juszczyk got a cut on his Achilles by getting stepped on. You can't make that up. Jacob Cowan is still rehabbing from his hamstring. Remember, Kyle Shanahan has talked about Raiders week. Renardo Green hamstring. Diarmado Lenore did return, so that's a good thing. Jair Brown, that surgically repaired ankle, they're taking it a little bit easy with him. That's why you see so many reports about Pinnock. Richie Grant, Sammy O, groin, that stinks. So Sammy O, Kevin Givens, Evan Anderson, all are rotational defensive linemen. But Steph, Nick Bosa was supposed to be practicing today, and now he's not. What's going on?
You always pay like extra close attention to anything like how Shanahan says. Like if he says like, "Hey, he's a player is expected back tomorrow," which he pretty much alluded to when he was talking about Nick Bosa, saying that yesterday's it was just a veteran rest day for him. Uh, kind of gave the sense that he would be back today, but he wasn't. And not only that, but like he was rehabbing today. Which, like he had the little rehab sports bra thing on. He wasn't in the regular shorts. He wasn't going to participate in practice at all from the jump. So I think they're just taking it easy on him. Like in seeing what he was doing today, he was doing some sprints. He was doing some pass rush work on his own. He looked fine. He's moving well. So I think they're just being cautious with him, which I'm fine with. And I've mentioned it before, Jay, like Bosa was tearing things up before, this even came up. So I think also the 49ers are probably like, we don't need to see Nick Bosa
I've
practice.
seen enough.
we've seen enough. Like, let's just get him ready for this joint practice on Thursday. So he'll get a couple of extra days off. I would be shocked if he's not out there. I'd be worried if he's not out there on Thursday.
Yeah, and tomorrow's an off day, right? And for me, just get him to week one. Nick
Yep.
Bosa, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, get him to week one. I don't really need to see anything from them. But there is one joint practice with the Broncos, and we'll get into what we're looking for, with that lately. Kyle Shanahan, he gave an update about him and Sean Payton collaborating on this and saying the second day is usually when everybody wants to fight. We need just one day. And for more than anything, even after last year when they canceled the Saints joint practices, objectives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through 10 is just please everybody get out of this thing healthy, no new injuries. So like it makes sense to do at least one. And then the one that I think is the most impactful is the Isaac Guerendo one. And here's why. The 49ers have really been cautious with Christian McCaffrey as they should. Isaac Guerendo has been somebody who has fully entrenched himself as the running back too. A shoulder injury that's going to cost him a few weeks. That's like his fifth injury since he's been up here. It's clear the young man is talented, but staying on the field has been so hard for him. He's obviously very fast. He's a big guy. He has all the tools. You see it in glimpses, but it's just when you're on the field, it's hard. And for our audio listeners, the tweet up on the screen from Kyle Posey. Isaac Guerendo, since the 49ers drafted him last year. Hamstring injury on 7/29, out 3 weeks. Tweaked groin on 8/28. Grade 1 foot sprain in week 14. Pulled hamstring in week 15. MCL ankle sprain in week 18. And now a recent shoulder injury that'll keep him out of a few weeks. Steph, if I'm not mistaken, the only running backs that are not dealing with any sort of ailment, issue, anything like that, Christian McCaffrey, Corey Kiner, Amir Abdullah, Patrick Taylor.
Jordan James did return to
Jordan
practice
James
this
did return to
week,
practice.
so he's fine there. But yeah, I mean, this is obviously a pretty big blow for RB2 on this team, and as that list showed, he's dealt with a lot of injuries. But you could also go back to his college career and find that the list is even longer, right? Like he's
Mm-hmm.
dealt with a lot of injuries. I hate to use the term injury prone, but like it's kind of tough for that to escape like Isaac Guerendo, right? Like he's just gonna have to create a different narrative at some point, and just that has not happened yet. So the one positive, I guess, you can draw from this shoulder injury is the fact that all his other injuries have been lower extremity
That's a good
injuries,
one.
right? So this one's a shoulder injury. But we also do know how those can seem to re-aggravate themselves as well. Like in the past when other 49ers have dealt with that. Debo, I think the
Debo.
most notable. So something to keep an eye on with Guerendo. I do like what I've seen from Jordan James, so that's a positive. Amir Abdullah looks to have some pretty fresh legs, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big blow for Guerendo, and it kind of just feels similar to Elijah Mitchell situation. Did have someone on my show yesterday kind of comment then, and I was like, ooh, yeah, it feels very reminiscent of that, and I just hope it doesn't continue to go down that path.
My hot take, and again, this is based on vibes because I'm not there and I haven't seen. My hot take is that Amir Abdullah is absolutely making this team. He is going to
Really
be
good.
one of he is going to be one of the five running backs that make this team. I'll make my prediction right now. Christian McCaffrey, Isaac Guerendo, Jordan James, Amir Abdullah, Kyle Juszczyk. I think those are your five that you go in with. And Corey Kiner, somebody that they're going to try to, stash on the practice squad. Most likely will get poached, but that's the way that I think they're going to approach it. When you look at Amir Abdullah's skill set, obviously you look and you say, oh, he's a veteran, he's bounced around. Last year when he was with the Raiders, when he was pressed into duty, he actually performed admirably. And I think he's one of these guys that I'm sure that Kyle Shanahan was very high on in the draft process during the time when he was ready to come out. I don't know if anybody remembers, but Amir Abdullah's first career touch in the NFL was a kickoff return touchdown when he was a member of the Detroit Lions. So I do see him making it, and from all reports, he's got the freshest legs, and he again, go back and watch him last year with the Raiders, man. He was good. So I think Abdullah's going to be that veteran that Kyle Shanahan likes to lean on, right? Like he doesn't let those veterans slide out, and he knows that if there's any other injuries, you can still go back to the Jeff Wilson, well, or like someone's close, like right by in touch, right? But I do think Amir Abdullah is going to make the team, and I do think that he's going to be the guy that Kyle kind of uses in that pass catching role. And again, you can't discount his love for veterans.
I absolutely think you're onto something there. And I think another thing that helps Abdullah a lot is the fact that he has punt return experience as well. And the 49ers have actually been having him work there a bit along with Bergen. And I'm forgetting who else. But, like Guerendo, as at times gotten looks there too. So if Guerendo's dealing with injury or like you feel like you can't depend on Guerendo, it'd be nice if you had another guy. Well, here comes Abdullah, who has a lot of veteran experience as well. So yeah, I think you're right. I think he's someone who's trending towards making this roster, just like a couple of other veterans, unassuming, when they signed, but definitely making a mark so far.
Steph, would I be wrong in saying that there are two position battles that are absolutely locked up and possibly now trending towards three if you count Upton Stout? I would say left guard is locked up and linebacker two is locked up with D Winters.
Yeah, I think so. The 49ers aren't really experimenting at those spots. And really not experimenting with Stout either, or anyone else, I should say, in that nickelback spot for the starting group. So I think Stout has that one. It feels like they're not trying to put that out there quite yet because, like, he's a rookie. You still want him to earn it and want
Salah
him
had to
to want to
walk
keep
that back
it.
today.
Yeah,
Salah had to walk that back
exactly.
today. Yeah, he was like, well, but it's a long race. Too late.
Exactly. Exactly. But he's looking great. But you also know like things can change, like guys could fall on their face in preseason games, right? That like things like that happen. But yeah, I think if fall continues to go as it has been, he's the guy and he looks so good. Like this doesn't look like a gimmick. He looks absolutely ready.
Yeah, so over the weekend on the off day, the 49ers position coaches sat down with the media, and we all know that when Chris Forrester says that they like someone, it's done. And Chris Forrester said it's his job to lose. So it's done. There's not there, and I think that's a good thing. Regardless of whatever you believe about the player, starting to build that rapport and starting to get them to gel immediately now in this first, before this first preseason game and getting it rolling through camp, that's absolutely imperative. Very good to hear about D Winters as well, too. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, the linebacker coach called him the best cover linebacker that the 49ers have. And that's high praise.
That's
But
big.
one thing I want to say is this: the tea leaves were out there because the San Francisco 49ers social media team dedicated an entire post to D Winters. Winters is coming, fine. You don't do that for someone who's fully entrenched in a camp competition. Linebacker two's locked up. So, and if I'm not mistaken, reading Nick Wagner's reports, not only is Nick Martin not behind D Winters, he's behind Luke Gifford.
Yeah, and I think I want to say it was only the first day, and I wasn't at that very first practice, but I want to say, like, based on the reports, it sounded like they did have Gifford ahead of Winters for that one practice, but it feels like every other practice since then, it's been Winters as that LB2. So yes, I think he firmly has that spot. And he's been playing up to it, right? So I'm really excited to see how he looks in these preseason games, and just another guy that the talent's there. It's just can he stay healthy for the season? I think that's going to be the real challenge going forward. So that's what we hope to see for Winters this year.
Okay, now I'm going to put your feet to the fire here. I'm not going to put, like it's so obvious to say something like Trent Williams is the best lineman. No, like the offensive MVP so far through camp and the defensive MVP so far during camp. Offensive MVP's got to be Ricky Pearsall, wouldn't you say? Because you can't say George Kittle. That's not fair. Like George Kittle's the best in the world. Like it's not like that's like
Anyone
that's
other
like
than Trent and
right.
Kittle, yeah.
Oh my God, George Kittle's the best offensive player in camp. Well, duh, like like who cares? Like we're talking about people that like we need to see development from. That would be Ricky Pearsall. But would you say that D Winters and Upton Stout are neck and neck right now?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think those guys are close. Like there's been a number of guys on the defense that have definitely flashed, like CJ West, Micah Williams, like, so I think it's a little tougher because they're on the defensive side. There's just been a lot of guys who have made a number of plays, but on the offensive side, besides, Kittle, yes, Pearsall, that's a pretty easy decision. And that's crazy because like he missed the first few practices of camp too. So like he came in, he looked ready, and that chemistry that he has with Brock just looks ready to cook, man. Like he's gonna get so many targets, stunks up in fantasy leagues. If you can get a good deal on Ricky Pearsall, which you probably could still if you have drafts around this time, get some Ricky Pearsall stocks because yeah, he's gonna go off. I mean, lately in practice, you just see him eating in zone, and like he's getting the ball all the time when he's finding those soft spots, and that seems to be like where he's gonna have the most success, I think, going forward. And the 49ers like to run zone quite a bit, so I think they'll be
Right.
making some space for Pearsall, and he'll be getting a lot of targets.
Now it seems to be, and do you lean Upton Stout or do you lean D Winters as the defensive MVP?
I feel like I have a bias. I love Upton Stout.
Good. Okay, good.
So,
I'm glad you said
so
that.
I want to
That's where
say
I was
Stout.
going.
I want to say Stout.
That's
Just
where
because
I
he's
was
a
going
surprise too. He's a surprise.
because it feels like Pearsall and Stout have been the prime time matchup, right? And this is, and I'm going to let you empty the notebook real quick, but there is in this Shanahan offense a way that Shanahan is going to get you open. You still have to be able to run routes, like don't get me wrong, but that sounds like a lot of what's going on with Ricky Pearsall, where he's getting these deep overs against zone, and he's running wide open, and they're attacking the soft spots. Cool, but I need to see you against somebody who's going to really press you. This is what I'm looking for in this Denver joint practice. This Denver joint
Yeah.
practice, I want to hear, how did Ricky Pearsall do against Surtain and Barron? Because I think we all know that the young man can run routes. I think we all know that he's got good hands and he's going to make tough catches. I think the last unanswered question is, can you beat press man? Can you beat physical corners? It sounds like up and down, up and stout, and him. It's like a heavyweight fight. One wins one round, one wins the other, which is great. Whatever. Iron sharpens iron, and I'm tired of that saying. But I think we need to see from Ricky Pearsall that you're going to be the guy that is relied on to go up against these top tier corners. And Patrick Surtain's right at the top of the league. If 1, 2, whatever it is, however you want to put it. So I am looking so forward to that. But it sounds like Upton Stout has been really challenging him, and it sounded like Ricky Pearsall fell coming out of his break because Upton Stout was putting hands on him. Like, this is something that he's got to work on, because NFL teams are not going to let you run around and not be touched if they know that the book starts to get out on you.
It's been very back and forth between those two, with Pearsall having like a number of wins, and then Upton Stout has some wins. So like this feels like an iron sharpens iron moment for these two, and so I've been really locked into them. I have the same sentiment that I do want to see Ricky Pearsall against better competition. Not that Stout hasn't been good so far, but he is a rookie at the end of the day. I think Pearsall with a little more experience should be able to win these matchups. Also, a former first round pick, right? So I want to see him have success against the likes of Lenore, against Surtain. That's going to be the real test for him. The one thing that I saw yesterday, like I did feel in one-on-ones, Pearsall did have the edge on Stout. Today in one-on-ones, it was Stout, because Stout plays very physical, and I feel like he's figured this out of Pearsall, that like when he has to play through contact, he doesn't really.
It's not his strong suit.
He doesn't really match it. He doesn't
Right.
match it. So I think Stout is really challenging him on that. And I think, we saw him fall. There was a play yesterday in team period where Stout was on Pearsall, and Pearsall should have had this ball. Like, it hit his hands, and I feel like it was just the physicalness of or the physicality of Stout that made Pearsall like second guess it. And, he's getting in his head, I feel like. So you have those reps where they're really pressuring each other, I think, and maybe it's getting to Pearsall, but I think it's good for Pearsall to experience this. But I want to see how he could do against other people as well. And as camp progresses, I don't have that much time left with camp. Like I only got Thursday practice, then I'm done. And, really there isn't that many more practices left. But I want to see if he can, with the next practice, work through the contact a little bit better and, not get stymied on it like he did a couple of times today. So that's kind of the challenge for him going forward.
God, I'm so jealous that you get to watch those joint practices. Those are electric. Like, and then there's that Denver defense is a top
Oh,
1, 2
yeah.
defense. I think the only other defense that's going to be better than them this season is Baltimore. You add Barron. Zach Allen's an absolute stud. You're talking about obviously Greenlaw, Hufunga. You want to have that. Like, that practice is going to be absolute prime time. I cannot wait. I am super jealous. But Upton Stout also made a great play up the sideline on a throw to Christian McCaffrey, in which and what's funny is Nick Wagner says that's his best throw of the day, and it lands incomplete, which is why you have to watch the tape, right, and not look at the box score. What did you think? What did you think about that play from Upton Stout?
that that was a nice throw from Purdy. It was kind of like a teardrop throw, and CMC beat the linebacker. That's a throw as a quarterback you take every day. Like anytime you have that matchup, you take it with CMC. And then it just seems like out of nowhere, like Stout, comes in and gets the pass breakup. Great play from him. And those are just the kind of plays that you start to see from him, as well as the run plays. Like that was already something you saw in his college tape. As I've said before, Jay, the question I had with Stout was like, how is he going to look in coverage, especially against NFL level guys? Well, so far he seems to look the part. So that's why I'm excited about Stout, because he's playing up to the level of the NFL competition. So equally, like I want to see Stout against other receivers as well once we get into these joint practices.
Hell yeah, Steph. Anything that you can give us from what you've been seeing? I know you were there today. That isn't necessarily known or spoken about, like players that have been popping up, because I think it's the Ricky Pearsall show, it's the Upton Stout show. No one's really talking about anybody else but those two. Anybody else that we should really have an eye on that is it has kind of flashed and in your eyes has really raised their stock?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the quarterbacks. Like Mac Jones been super efficient. Like his ball placement, when as long as he's not getting pressured and he could stay in the pocket, he's comfortable. Like his ball placement is chef's kiss. Like he's been awesome in practice. Carter Bradley definitely better than Tanner Mordecai. I like
Well,
Jordan James.
real quick,
Yeah,
you can't fire the assistant head coach's son.
yeah. You're stuck with Carter Bradley now. But no, like
Team full of nepo babies.
but I see the vision. I see the vision with Bradley. He's made some nice tight window throws as well. So it's it's not for nothing that they signed him. So uh, he'll be interesting, I think, in the preseason games. But Jordan James, I like the way that he's played. I think now that he kind of has an opportunity to be the LB2, or sorry, the RB2, we see what he does with it, with those opportunities. But I feel like he's a good all around back. We'll see what he does. We've already talked about Demarcus Robinson and Russell Gage. I feel like they're very reliable. They'll continue to be. Jordan Watkins, I think, is getting a lot of love, especially like at Mac Jones. He's getting work with the twos. That makes sense because there's a lot of wide receivers hurt. But I do feel like this is helping him out. This is raising his stock to a point where he's making this roster, in my opinion. And I think he might get some decent playing time as long as he can get his head into this playbook and have it down. I know that's always the struggle for the rookie wide receivers, but as long as he continues looking the way he does, like I think he'll continue to earn those opportunities, at least in camp into these preseason games. I also like what I've seen from Junior Bergen. They have some creative plays for him, as you could imagine. Him just kind of being like this small, agile kind of dude. And yeah, the tunnel screens, things like that, end arounds for him. So that's been intriguing. Ross Dwelly's back. He seems to. So the thing with tight ends, sorry, Jay, I'm kind of just like going through
Nope, do your thing.
the
I'm listening.
roster here a little bit, but like I get asked a lot, like who's the tight end too, right? And we know it's like Luke Farrell, but like I get the sense that Luke Farrell is strictly and very strictly like just a blocking guy. Like
For sure.
I've only seen him make 2 catches in all of camp. Every other tight end that's even further down the depth chart has gotten more catches than him in camp so far, which I find a little odd. Like you would think Farrell could get at least a couple of more targets, but it's like he's not even running routes at all. So Ross Dwelly, getting a number of catches as well as Braden Willis. Like he's kind of come on as a guy that's getting a lot of targets with Mac, and then also the third string quarterbacks. So yeah, that's an interesting one. I'll be waiting to see, I guess, who they pick there, or how those guys fare in the preseason games. I think that'll kind of tell us a lot. As far as the offensive linemen, like Drew Moss is one guy that in one-on-ones and even sometime in team periods has really surprised. And as an undrafted free agent, I think he has a chance to maybe make the roster. He'll definitely make the practice squad if he doesn't make the roster. But I think what he's shown so far has been definitely intriguing. He's gotten some nice wins against CJ West at times. So, when guys make plays like that, you got to pay attention. Let's see. On the defensive line, like we've heard plenty of CJ West and Michael Williams, and those guys look the part. Alfred Collins, everyone's like worried about. Like I've already seen people calling Collins a bust. Can we like stop with that? That feels a little premature.
Look at the people you're asking to stop. Come on.
True. But if I could do anything to alleviate those concerns, for one, it's way too early to make such proclamations, and two, like we have to remember he didn't play in the spring at all. Like he didn't practice in the spring. Training camp is his ramp up. He's going through that process slowly, but I think you're seeing incremental improvements with all the practices that he's had, right? So that's all you can ask for. So disappointing, yes, to start, but you are seeing some growth. I think that's important, not panicking on Collins. Sebastian Valdez, the undrafted free agent defensive tackle, also turning some heads, especially in one-on-ones. And with a lot of the injuries happening, kind of creating opportunities for him as well to kind of, just further show what he has. And he's going to get probably some more reps, maybe even with some like the second team a little bit more, just with the injuries that have happened there. Tatum Bethune has been making a couple of plays as of late that, I think like he's coming along pretty well too. Nick Martin, has made a couple plays, but like we said, D Winters firmly the OB2, but it's still nice to see growth from some of those other guys as well, especially Bethune, who's second year guy. So, yeah, he's been making some nice plays both in the run game and in coverage. So you like to see that. I think Dallas Flowers has the inside track to be the third corner, Jay. Like, and how Saleh was saying, like, there's the competition for the third corner, not the slot spot, but third corner. Whoever comes in after Lenore and or Green, if one of those guys is hurt, it's been Flowers to this point, right? So I think he's that guy right now. And then also you got Darrell Luter Jr., who's kind of in that mix too, but like I said, I think Flowers has the edge on him. Jacob Robinson continues to have a lot of pass breakups throughout camp. He got some second team work today, which I think is good. Like he definitely seems to be trending up and getting more opportunities, so I think that's good for him. And then as I'm talking about the DBs here, I'll say this, like, Saleh was absolutely cooking today. Like in the first half of team period,
I wanted to ask you about that.
It was mostly offense, and it almost felt like Saleh was like, yeah, no, this second half of practice is mine. Like he was just dialing up all sorts of stuff. There was like, I don't want to put too much details out there, but there was like a
Why?
super, because we,
Steph.
no
If they don't want it to be out there, and if they're doing something that's secret, which they're not, they're gonna do this in the season, then they wouldn't put it on display for fans. Just say it.
Okay, so there was like a loaded front to like the right side, but it was like three or four guys hanging around like more like where the wide receivers are, like super wide out. And I'm just like, what are they doing? There's two guys on this side. There were times where they had like five DBs on the field at the same time. So you had like Luter playing corner. I don't remember if Lenore was in there at this point in team period, but they had Stout in there. They had Richie Grant playing safety, Pinnock as a blitzer. Three plays in a row where they had Pinnock blitzing, so they were doing that quite a bit. I think Upton Stout was in on a blitz on another play. They were doing stunts, like just all kinds of exotic stuff. He was just pulling out the book on the offense at that point. And during this time, there were a bunch of would-be sacks, as you could imagine, for the offense. So I like that he dialed it up, and because I assume the offense will see some tough things from the Broncos defense as well. You know, you kind of said the Broncos defense pretty good. So yeah, Nick Bosa hasn't been out here, so the offense has kind of had it easy for the last couple of days that Bosa hasn't been out there because he's, like I said, he's been wrecking stuff when he is. So I think, Solid just kind of wanted to set the offense straight a little bit and, obviously experiment. So I'm excited to see what Solid does. Also, Siegel was in on those, like with the first team on those crazy plays where you had five DBs or so out there, which was cool because, I think Siegel has a lot of experience blitzing in college as well. So he might get some looks there. But yeah, it was just a bunch of new things we hadn't seen before. And man, yeah, I'm excited for a real defense this year.
That's what we're all excited to hear about, right? And for anybody that's worried, like, oh, you can't say that. Listen, that's not top secret stuff. And if it was, they wouldn't be showing it to the fans and the media. They'll work on that when those closed practice happen. So everybody relax, okay? She can say whatever she wants. There's no real reason to be like we're giving away trade secrets. Like the Seattle Seahawks are not watching this podcast right now saying, "Oh, write that down, write that down." Like come on guys, let's slow down, okay? It's not that important, okay? But it is interesting to hear these things because this is exactly what Fred Warner was talking about when he said he spoke to John Lynch about Robert Saleh coming back and his scheme evolving. And again, we all are excited one way or another. This defense, one, can't be as bad as it was last season because it's almost statistically impossible, especially in run defense. But two, the the guy knows how to use all of the talent that he has. And if his fingerprints are all over this defense in terms of who they've drafted, who they brought in free agency, then you bet your ass that Salah knows how to use them. This isn't a Sorensen deal where Sorensen is trying to utilize a defense that he inherited. This is literally Robert Salah's making of his defense from the ground up. And even the guys that are here, they are literally the guys that he was already coaching. And with Bosa, it's just, go get the quarterback. You don't have to worry about any of those things. So this is all interesting to hear, and it's very exciting because there was so much about, what is Salah going to bring and and the reason that the 49ers turned the keys all the way over was we're going to allow you to shape the personnel. And if that's the case, then you better believe that Robert Saleh knows how to use them. What's my saying? If a guy's really good as a run defender, then don't force him into one-on-one pass situations, right? You wouldn't ask your plumber to fix your roof. This isn't a situation like that with Robert Saleh. He understands how to use all these guys. Upton Stout was very effective blitzing from the nickel corner position, and I think we all know the functionality of a nickel corner is essentially another linebacker on the field who has to cover. Like you have to get your helmet dirty in there on run defense, and also you're gonna have to guard people. One question that I wanted to ask you is, the Michael Williams ankle injury, right? And it just seems to there's too many times that I've read that seems like he's limping around a little bit. And I want to point out that last season, what everybody was pointing about his production was he fought through an ankle injury the entire season at Georgia, and I can bet that that's something that really Kyle Shanahan and this organization looked at as like, oh well, he can play through injuries. That's really good, because we've got this injury epidemic going on. But Steph, have you seen him, kind of being a little gimpy, moving around like a little bit gingerly?
No, and in fact, he had the what is it called? Like the rookie hype machine or whatever they do, like
Oh, so he was
before
jumping
practice.
around.
He was jumping around. He's jogging, he's running. Like he seems fine to me. I'll pay a little more attention to that. Like obviously, like I'm
Just
not
asking.
looking at
I haven't
Michael
seen anything. Mhm.
No, no, I haven't seen anything either. I didn't even know people were pointing that out, but yeah, maybe I'll pay a little more attention and see if he is limping. But Jay, sometimes some guys just walk with a little bit of swag, and maybe they got that step to them.
All right. One more question. Why is Tariq Owens wide receiver one? Okay. I'm joking. The Denver Broncos joint practices. We kind of alluded to it. I want to see Ricky Pearsall against Barron and Surtain. This is your test. Guys are, if the book starts to get out, guys are gonna put hands on you. Surtain is a top 1-2 cornerback in the NFL. I believe this Denver Broncos as a whole is a top 1-2 defense in the NFL. Um, Zach Allen is going to be an absolute menace, and he just got paid, and it's going to be interesting to figure out the 49ers offensive line against this stout defensive line. And I think those are the two things that I'm really looking at right now as the things that I'm really excited about. Would you say that you're more excited for the Ricky Pearsall battle, or are you a little excited to see this offensive line up against a very stout defensive line?
I'm excited to see a fight. Like,
Well, Dre Greenlaw is going to be there, so it'll definitely be a fight.
yeah, I'm excited to see a fight. But in all seriousness, I like to me with this team, like fights are a good thing because I think it just shows that one, they're ready to hit other people, which is obvious at this point in training camp for most teams. But two, like I think just the level of competition that some of these guys have been going at already, they're fighting for something, right? And figuratively, but also like if it comes to fighting literally, I think it's because things are getting chippy. Someone's pissing someone off. Like, when we see Jauan Jennings piss off, DBs, that kind of fight. Like
Mm-hmm.
someone's getting mad because you're imposing their will on them. Like that's the type of fight I'm trying to see. And I think we do. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Upton Stout. Obviously, I'm looking forward to Pearsall, seeing him go up against Sertan, and I'm also looking forward to seeing Trent going up against guys who aren't our own defensive linemen too. Because I want to squash this narrative that Trent's taken a step back. Not even just for what other people are saying, but like so I can feel better too because I don't want that doubt creeping into my mind either. Not that it is, but I'm just saying. Like I think I'll feel better if I see Trent looking like his old self against this Broncos defensive line, which we're mentioning is really good. So I want to see that. I think also seeing Nick Bosa have success against the Broncos offensive line will kind of just reaffirm to me that this is potentially an all-pro year for Nick Bosa. Like it's looking like that in training camp so far. He's just everywhere. So I want to see him do it against another team. I'm feel great about that. Want to see how Purdy does. Just going up against another defense for the first time in a long time. So want to see how these rookies do going up against new faces, right? Like one step closer to facing another team and how they may look in preseason and how that's going to eventually look in season, right? Do they look ready for that challenge? So yeah, I'm just excited for all of it, and yeah, I think it's pretty crazy. Fans are going to be able to watch that to begin with, but I wish we could film a little more, but all good.
We're missing the plot. Don't bury the lead here. Do not bury the lead here with what's important. Our old buddy's back. No, it's not Hufunga.
Yeah, there's a
No,
lot.
no, it's not Greenlaw. Hello, Mike McGlinchey, and who is going to get to go up against him? That is going to be absolute madness. By the
Yo,
way, the Denver Broncos have a very highly ranked offensive line. So this is a good test for the defensive line. It's going to be very good for Mike Kell and CJ West. And obviously you want to see Bosa go out there. But hello, Mike McGlinchey. We hardly knew you. We haven't seen you in forever. How are you, buddy?
I'm gonna be so stoked. One, if Bosa like cooks him, which that's kind of like a given. But I want to see if Mike Hell can cook him too. Like I'm gonna feel
Mm-hmm.
good if I see that.
Mm-hmm.
Feel so good.
Yeah. See, these are the types of tweets that are going to get you the most engagement, right? Like if you're talking about how Mike McGlinchey's getting his ass kicked over and over, like this is the type of stuff that 49er fans like they've got to have that in their veins, right? They want to hear that. They want blood when it comes to Mike McGlinchey because of the way that they regard him. But no, this is going to be very interesting, right? The Denver Broncos playoff team, their offense, they've got an upstart offense as well too. I'm excited to see this defense. I want to see what Dallas Flowers is going to be able to do with this wide receiver core. Cortland Sutton, just got paid as well too. They got a speedster in Troy Franklin. This is a very good and up and coming Denver Broncos team. I love this matchup for so many reasons because the Broncos are a team that are on the rise and they have a lot of things going for them. Like I said, I only I if I don't have the Broncos as the number one defense, I've got the Baltimore Ravens as the number one defense this season. With the additions that they made. And now the offense, and for all intents and purposes, reading some of the Denver Broncos reports, the Denver offense has been cooking. Like Sean Payton is going to dial it up for them, right? And he's found something with Bo Nix. So you have that good offensive line, you have a great defense. The Broncos are set up, man. This is going to be a really good competition, and it's going to be a very good litmus test for where these guys are because you can bet your ass that these joint practices are going to be about I need to win, I need to show, and all of these guys, no matter where they are in their career, whether they're all pros, whether they're guys fighting for their lives on these rosters, they are going to take it up a notch, and that competition level is going to start to get there. So yeah, it's very exciting for this. Now, we talked about it. Kyle Shanahan cuts down the second day of practices because he said after the first day, the second day, everybody wants to kill each other. I think that's very fair. That's probably when you would see the most amount of fights. And of course, he got those questions about how's it going to be. Are you excited to practice against Greenlaw and Huff? And he's like, no, I'm not excited to practice against guys that I really like. But this is going to be a controlled atmosphere, and I think they're going to play it by ear. Don't be shocked if God forbid there's injuries to the Broncos or more to the 49ers that they cut these practices short. Again, the goal is to get these live reps, get those pads popping, but at the end of the day, you have to get out of these games healthy. Now, in terms of the game, I doubt we're going to see Brock Purdy. I doubt we're going to see Christian McCaffrey. I doubt we'll see Trent Williams. I doubt we'll see, Nick Bosa. But you can't bench everybody, and I think everybody, has to understand that. So do you believe, like I do, that Jordan James is going to get the start on Saturday with most of the reps, and he's going to have a really, really big chance to cement his role as running back two with Guerendo out?
I think he'll start. I don't know if I'd go as far to say that he'll get most of the reps because you got to be careful with him. Like if
Well,
he's now your RB two,
with the
like
first team. With the first
yeah,
team. Yeah.
yeah. He'll start. He'll start
Yeah.
for sure, and then maybe they'll pull him with the first team because you definitely need to keep him around for the long haul, and we'll probably see a lot of Patrick Taylor and Corey Kiner. And those
And
guys
Amir
will
Abdullah.
probably fight, and Abdullah, of course. But yeah, I think the battle for like maybe sticking around on practice squad is between Taylor and Kiner, but we'll see. They could. I think that all three of them are kind of fighting for that last roster spot still.
Right. My sense is I'm gonna lean towards how Kyle loves the veterans, and he'll expose a player that is an undrafted rookie on the practice squad, and if they get poached, they get poached. Whatever. Again, Jeff Wilson's probably in arm's reach, to come back if something like that happens. Look, again, this game, this practice, this entire week has to be about just getting out of this thing healthy. No new injuries in any way. And I think it's going to be important, to see what the secondary looks like, right? So you talked about Dallas Flowers, and it's very clear that Gus Bradley loves Dallas Flowers. If there's a video floating around of when Dallas Flowers was with Gus Bradley in Indianapolis, and he talked about coming off of the ACL injury, how it kind of zapped him a little bit, and he's a year removed from it, and they feel better about it. I do want to see that. I do want to see the back end, Marcus Siegel. I want to see some of these things that, you've been talking about with, Salah dialing up. I'm sure he's going to, this is the time to experiment right now, right? Is in the preseason, right? Is to try to figure some things out. You don't experiment during the games in the regular season. So yeah, the back end, obviously it sounds like Pinnock and then obviously Jair Brown is working through that ankle, or just trying to get it. They're being very cautious with him. Richie Grant was the next one up. He had an interception today, if I'm not mistaken, right?
He did, and that one was just a really bad throw from Brock.
Brock?
Honestly, it was like high and behind Kittle, and it just went right to Grant.
Yeah. So all of these things are going to be important. Like, when people say that preseason games don't matter, that's fine if you don't enjoy, the roster fighting, right? And the guys that are going to be playing for their lives. And what's funny is the evaluation in the offseason is threefold. It's what you do in the building, what you do in training camp practices, and what you do in preseason. All three of those things are probably not weighted the same, but they are a part of the evaluation. So don't think that those guys can just lollygag and get out of the game without trying. So I think, again, Kyle Shanahan hates preseason games. He's been very vocal about that, but I don't think you're going to see any starters, if not many. You might have to. I think you'll probably see maybe D Winters for a little bit. You'll see Pinnock, I think. But you won't. Demo's not going to play. Obviously Renardo Green's not going to play. You probably won't see Ricky Pearsall because if Brock's not going to be there, it doesn't really make sense for that. So yeah, that's the part of these preseason games that are going to be so interesting, is like filling out this 53-man roster. Who's going to stick around? Who has a case? And I think that's the fun part of it. I think I've got a handle on certain jobs. Like I said, linebacker 2, I think, is locked in as D Winters. Left guard is definitely Ben Barch. Good. Now let them gel and let no more competition, no more messing around. They run with the first team. They're getting themselves involved. Good. Let's get this thing rolling. All the other stuff is going to be interesting when it comes on the back end. We're going to see a little bit of Siegel, and I'm sure you'll see some Upton Stout as well too. But you've got to find a way to get these guys those reps but also protecting them, because you do have an eye already on how you feel about week 1.
That's a challenge, and it's definitely a balance. But like you said, definitely can't bench everyone for these preseason games. So someone's gonna have to take the brunt of the hits and take that risk. So, but Jay, you didn't even mention the valuation of the kicker position. Like, all right, you're not excited to see Jake. You're not excited to see Jake Moody in these joint practices, and there's extra pressure because there's another team involved. God, I know Rob was just couldn't wait to get this graphic up. This says kicker update. That's insane. But no, you worked hard on that one, Rob. And the preseason game. I mean, Jay, I know you
Yes.
don't care, but
I don't
it's
care.
like I know you
I
don't
don't care.
care, but
I don't care.
but
I
if
do
he
not care.
misses a kick, I care because I don't want the 49ers losing games because of the kicker. So
Well, okay, okay, I've
I
contained my
triggered
rage.
I
No,
triggered him.
I've contained my rage, and I'm ready to give thoughtful analysis.
Okay.
Just because Greg Joseph is not on the roster doesn't mean that Jake Moody's out of the woods. And Kyle Shanahan said just as much.
Thank you.
And here's the logic. You cut Greg Joseph, nobody's gonna say, "Oh my God, the 49ers got rid of Greg Joseph. We gotta go." Nobody cares. He'll just be one call away, sitting on the couch, and if Jake Moody starts to pull his nonsense, you're back. You're back. So it's not out of the woods at all. And I
Yeah.
really like what Kyle Shanahan said about every kicker in the league is in a kicker competition. And you know why, Steph? I'm gonna take a victory lap here because Kyle Shanahan is just like me. I mean, he's not just like me because I wouldn't have drafted a kicker with any pick, but you know what? I digress. He says you're in a competition every kick that you have because kickers can be found on the street and brought in immediately. What a novel idea,
Oh,
man.
he knows that
Holy.
now. He knows
Oh,
that
he
now.
no. Oh, no, no. He knew it when they brought in Joey Sly, and Joey Sly was great. He knew it when he brought in Pat O'Donnell, and Pat O'Donnell was great as punter. He knew it when every other kicker that they brought in after Moody was injured didn't miss a single kick. I just want to say thank you, Kyle Shanahan, for at least saying that part out loud. But I will say this one more time. If the answer is not Jake Moody, and you spent pick 99 on a guy that didn't stick around for more than 2 years, my rage will intensify because you absolutely set a draft pick on fire for someone who doesn't play football. This has to work. Jake Moody needs to be the kicker. He needs to be reliable. And if it's not, it only makes that pick even worse than it already was. You do not draft pick kickers anywhere above round 6, round 7. Hell, I wouldn't draft them at all. But if this kicker that you took with a top 100 pick gets beaten out by a veteran 40-year-old kicker off the street and you cut him, oh, my rage is going to intensify
God
even
help us
further.
all.
God help you, Kyle Shanahan. God help you, John Lynch, because that is the most egregious thing ever. And you know what's funny? Jason, you're overreacting. You know, the night that it happened. Jason, that's the only thing we needed. And now look at this. 2 years later, I have never seen more people just say, I can't believe they burned a pick at a pick 99. Welcome to the party. You do not draft any kicker. You find them at Walmart. You find them at Target. You ask if they've kicked in high school, if they played soccer. Unbelievable that it took people almost 2 years to get right there with this. And now all of a sudden it's a bad pick. Come on, guys. Let's catch up. Kyle Shanahan, I see you. But I like that he said it's not over. He better watch his back because he missed one today. He missed one today.
He'd been missing. That's what's so funny. But yeah, I think that feels like that puts a bow on the show, doesn't it? And Rob,
Kicker update.
I just can't. I like this is look. we're It's training camp. Football players are competing to play football, and here we are talking about a kicker. I just and I'm getting trolled. I'm getting trolled by Rob. You know what? This is probably payback for our joke about like when you're not on the show or when I'm not on the show, and thanks for leaving me with Rob. Because he's and if you're asking about if we mentioned about Keenan Allen, we literally opened the show with it. Um, it's unbelievable that during a training camp in which we're dealing with massive injuries and there's these position battles and we that this is something that needs to be spoken about. And I like it just everything about it. I hate it. I don't want to talk about it. It's not real football. I don't want to talk about it. I don't, but I guess we have to. Steph, I do want to say this. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we have football every single day. And if you want the unofficial start of like, real football all the time, Hard Knocks starts in an hour on the East Coast with the Buffalo Bills. I am so excited to stop talking about hypotheticals and to stop talking about, the what would happen and now we have actual things. Uh, you know, that is something that I'm really looking forward to, man. I can't wait. And Thursday is going to be really good. There's a few good games that are going to be on. It's important to watch these games, depending on, especially if you're trying to prepare for your fantasy drafts. It's really important to watch some of these games, right? Indianapolis against Baltimore is one that I'm going to be watching, obviously, to figure out who the hell their starting quarterback's going to be, because you want to draft, Josh Downs and Michael Pittman, and A.D. Mitchell is a real big sleeper. Apparently, he's been tearing it up. But yeah, we're so back with football. Ryan Reed, thank you for the donation. Jason, I'm visiting New York this week. What do I go do? Ryan, hit me on Twitter, man, and I'll send you a whole bunch of things, because I know nobody cares about hearing me give you recs for New York. But there's a lot to do, and I got you, depending on what you want to do, Ryan. Make sure you get at me. I got you. But Hard Knocks tonight. Football 4 straight days in a row. We are so back. And Saturday is obviously the 49ers game. I won't be able to watch, unfortunately, but I hope everybody gives me good updates and lets me know what's going on. But are you as excited as I am? Like, just to, like life didn't have meaning for a little while, and that stupid sport baseball is fired. So, we're so back. Like, it's back to real sports again, like a real sport.
I can't wait to just rot on my couch watching football again. Like, life finally has meaning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, the sun is shining. Nothing's wrong. Coffee tastes better in the morning, right? There's nothing wrong anymore. Like, things are back to normal. But thank you guys for joining us. This is a great episode. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. She's giving you camp updates. Still one of the best in the biz. Steph, continue the great work. You can follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte2103. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcasts. This has been a fun one, Steph. Enjoy the joint practices. Tomorrow the 49ers are off. Thank God. No injuries. Or maybe I should knock on wood. But make sure that you tap in with Steph so she can give you the updates on Thursday with the joint practice. For Steph, for Jay, we're out of here.
Peace.
Kicker update.